Hey everyone! Today we're going to talk about one of the most interesting and influential dynasties in Armenian history, the Mamikonians. These were not just any ordinary ruling family, they were a powerhouse that shaped the political and military landscape of Armenia for centuries. Their story stretches all the way back to the 1st century BCE, but they truly came into their own during a particularly turbulent period from around 428 CE to 652 CE, when Armenia was partially under the control of the mighty Sasanian Empire. One of the most celebrated figures from this dynasty is Vardan Mamikonian. He's remembered as a hero who gave his life in the famous Battle of Avarayr in 451 CE. This wasn't just any battle. It was a fierce stand against Persia to protect Armenia's cultural and religious independence. Vardan's bravery and sacrifice became a symbol of resilience and devotion to faith. Now let's rewind a bit to understand how the Mamikonians rose to prominence. Before their era of influence, Armenia was ruled by the Abbasid dynasty, starting from 12 CE. For centuries they skillfully navigated the tricky balance between two superpowers of the time, Rome and Persia. But by the 5th century, things began to shift. The Sasanian Empire, growing ever more ambitious, started asserting greater control over Armenia. This culminated in the formal division of Armenia between Persia and the Eastern Roman Empire in 387 CE. The last Abbasid ruler, Artaxias IV, found himself overwhelmed by internal conflicts and external pressures. Pro-Persian factions gained ground, and the crown was eventually abolished in the Persian-controlled part of Armenia, often referred to as Pers Armenia. In 428 CE, Persia installed marspans or viceroys, who wielded both civilian and military authority on behalf of the Sasanian king. This marked a significant shift in power dynamics, paving the way for the Mamikonians to emerge as the dominant force in Armenian politics and military affairs. The Mamikonians had already established themselves as a formidable clan long before this. Their roots were in the northern province of Teka, and their military prowess was well known. They could field a cavalry force of 3,000 knights, a significant asset in any conflict. By the late 4th century, they often held the prestigious position of Grand Marshal, or sparapet, essentially the commander of Armenia's armed forces. While they were second only to the Abbasid royal family in importance, their influence grew exponentially once the Abbasids fell. Two notable figures from the early Mamikonian lineage, Mush and Manuel Mamikonian, even served as regents, highlighting their political acumen and clout. When the Abbasids were no longer in the picture, the Mamikonians stepped in to fill the void. One of the key figures during this transition was Hamazasp Mamikonian, who married Sahakanyush, the daughter of the first bishop Sahak, around 439 CE. This union wasn't just a personal alliance. It brought together two of Armenia's most powerful families, the Mamikonians and the descendants of Saint Gregory the Illuminator. This strategic marriage unified feudal and ecclesiastical power, further solidifying the Mamikonians' dominance. Over the next 3 centuries, 7 Mamikonian princes ruled Armenia, navigating the complexities of Sasanian oversight. Interestingly, despite their control, the Sasanians allowed some key aspects of Armenian society to remain intact. The Nakarars, or local princes, maintained their semi-autonomous governance over vast estates, and the Christian Church, founded around 314 CE, continued to exist, albeit under increasing pressure. The Sasanians didn't outright ban Christianity, but they did attempt to weaken it. They promoted Zoroastrianism, sent missionaries, and reduced the church's tax privileges. Even so, churches and monasteries managed to survive, preserving their lands and resources. Things took a darker turn with the rise of King Yazdgerd II and his zealous prime minister Mir Naras. They ramped up efforts to impose Zoroastrianism, forcing Armenian nobles and clergy to convert under threat of death. This tension reached a breaking point at the Battle of Avarayr in 451 CE. The Armenians, led by Vardan Mamikonian, faced an enormous Persian army. This wasn't just a clash of armies, it was a battle for identity, faith, and freedom. And the Battle of Avarayr, a crucial moment for Armenia's history and faith. Before the battle, tensions were already high. Armenians had started rebelling, burning Zoroastrian temples, and even attacking Persian priests. They managed a small victory against a Persian force in 450 CE, but this was just the beginning. The big showdown happened in May or June of 451 CE, on the plains of Avarayr, in what is now Iran. Vardan Mamikonian, the son of Hamazasp, led about 6,000 Armenians into battle. They were united, with nobles and church leaders fighting together against the Persian forces. But the odds were stacked against them. The Persian army was much larger, and included elite soldiers called the Immortals, and terrifying war elephants. The Armenians had hoped for help from the Byzantine Empire, but none came. To make things worse, Vasak Siyuni, a Persian-backed official, abandoned them and didn't show up to fight. The battle was brutal. The Persians crushed the Armenians, and Vardan Mamikonian was killed. To the Armenian church, though, Vardan and his fighters became heroes and martyrs. The Battle of Avarayr turned into a symbol of Armenia's determination to keep their faith and culture alive. Even after this defeat, smaller rebellions kept breaking out, with the Mamikonians continuing to resist Persian attempts to control Armenian culture. Eventually, their persistence paid off. In 484 CE, the Treaty of Marsak was signed. This agreement gave Armenia more political freedom, and allowed them to practice Christianity openly. The Persians had other problems to deal with, so they made peace with Armenia. Vardan's nephew, Vahan Mamikonian, became Armenia's governor in 485 CE. During his 10 years in power, Armenia thrived. New buildings were constructed, like the cathedral at Divan, and trade grew, especially at the city of Artashat, which became an important trading spot between the Byzantine and Persian empires. Religion played a big role in shaping Armenia's future. While their Christian beliefs brought them closer to the Byzantine Empire, there were disagreements about theology. The Armenian Church rejected a major decision made at the Council of Chalcedon in 451 CE, which caused a divide with the Roman Church. This divide grew deeper after the Council of Divan, in 554 CE, where the Armenian Church officially embraced monophysitism, the belief that Christ has one nature, not two. This set Armenia on its own religious path, stuck between Eastern and Western influences. Around this time, a historian named Movses Koronatsi, often called the father of Armenian history, wrote a book called History of the Armenians. He combined old stories, traditions, and his own ideas to create a record of Armenia's past. While some of his details might not be accurate, his work gave Armenians a strong sense of their shared history and identity. By the late 6th century, Armenia was once again caught between powerful empires. Persia and Byzantium fought over the land, and eventually Byzantium took control of most of Armenia. Things got even more chaotic in 627 CE, when the Byzantine Emperor Heraclius waged a war against Persia. Armenia was dragged into the fighting, and while this ended Persian control, Byzantine rule didn't last long. A new power, the Arab Rashidun Caliphate, rose and conquered Persia's capital in 637 CE. From 640 to 650 CE, the Arabs conquered Armenia, and by 701 CE, it became a province of the Umayyad Caliphate. The Mamikonians remained important for a while, leading rebellions into the 8th century, but their influence faded. A new dynasty, the Bagratunis, rose to power. By the end of the 9th century, the Bagratunis became Armenia's royal family, starting a new chapter in its history.